Welcome to the Crumb Cake Kitchen. Today I'll be making a hand-painted Christmas-themed cake inspired by the beauty of winter birch trees. Let's go over some of the supplies I'm using. I purchased my silicone candy molds on Amazon and I'm using 3 different sizes today. I'll be using Merkin's chocolate candy melts that I bought at Bulk Barn, and I can say these are definitely my favorite. Roxy & Rich Hybrid Luster Dust in soft gold, new silver, and tomato red sparkle dust. Prism powder in rhinestone silver. Avocado edible paint by Chef Master. And black edible art paint by Sweet Sticks. Dip a soft brush in luster dust and cover the inside of the molds completely. Do your best not to leave any bare spots. It's really important to completely dry these silicone candy molds after washing them. Otherwise, you risk having water spots show up on your completed candy when you remove it. Repeat the same process with all 3 molds in the color of your choice. The tomato red sparkle dust doesn't cover nearly as well as the hybrid luster dust, so next time I'll stick with what works best. Begin by adding about a tablespoon of melted chocolate into the mold. I use a paintbrush to spread the chocolate evenly throughout the mold. If you're going to do this, choose a brush that you don't mind ruining and keep it around for the next time you make chocolate spheres. As the chocolate cools, continue to work it up the sides of the mold. I like to bring it just up and over the top edge, so I get a nice fit when bringing the halves together and there are no unsightly gaps. As each mold is filled, put them in the fridge to set for about 10 minutes. Here you can see that the first coat is set and the extra chocolate needs to be removed. Using a sharp knife or a palette knife, carefully remove the excess so you're left with a nice smooth edge. Pour another tablespoon of chocolate into the mold and give it a second coat. It's better to use a little extra chocolate so the spheres don't break when removing them. Repeat the same process for all 3 molds and refrigerate to fully set for about 20 minutes. Now that the chocolate is completely set and your edges are clean, it's time to remove the half spheres. Flip the silicone mold over on the counter and press lightly but firmly on the back of the mold. With your other hand, gently peel back the silicone until the half sphere pops out. I love how easy these silicone molds are to work with. As you can see, the luster dust sticks to the chocolate beautifully. For this next step, I heat up a pot or pan on the stovetop for just a minute or 2. Place the pot upside down on your work surface. Now take 2 of the same size halves and gently touch them to the bottom of the pot for a second or 2, just so they begin to melt a little. Quickly place the halves together and voila, you have a beautiful chocolate sphere. Repeat with the silver and red spheres. After the spheres have set completely, you can touch up any color that was rubbed away in handling. This little sphere didn't cooperate. It's okay. I didn't need it anyways. It's always a good idea to make extra for this reason. Now brush 1 more coat of luster dust onto the spheres to conceal any blemishes. I want these chocolate balls to look like Christmas ornaments, so I'm going to make a little topper out of fondant. This could easily be done in chocolate as well, and in hindsight, I really should have done it that way, so it's entirely edible. I'm using a mold that I had on hand, but you could make these without a mold as well by rolling out a small log shape and cutting to size. I like taking the easy way anytime I can. Generously dust the silicone mold with cornstarch so it's easy to remove the fondant later. Take your conditioned fondant and push it into the mold with your fingers. I like using a ball tool to work it into all of the edges, and then smoothing the outer frayed edge away with my fingertip. Placing the mold into the freezer for about 5 minutes will make it much easier to remove the fondant without distorting it. I always put fondant in the freezer for a minute or two if I need it to hold its shape when I'm moving it. After 5 minutes in the freezer, flip the mold over on the counter and pop the ornament tops out. Continue making more until you have as many tops as you need. My Christmas ornaments will have gold tops. You can paint them with edible paint if you want, but that feels like way too much work for me. Instead, grab a pin and carefully poke it into the bottom of the fondant. Now gently swirl the topper around in the luster dust and shake off the excess. Just like that, it's perfect. Repeat this until all the toppers are done and set them aside for later. This is where the real fun begins. I've taken a couple of cuttings off the big, beautiful spruce tree I have in my front yard, and I've washed and dried them completely. Always ensure that whatever you put on your cake is food safe. I've also wrapped the stems in floral tape to protect the cake. I've practiced my technique a little on paper towel before applying to the cake. I'm going for a rustic, imperfect birch tree look. Now that I'm ready to paint, I'll take my buttercream cake out of the fridge. For this technique, you'll need nice, firm buttercream. I'm using a soft, quality, wide-angled brush. You don't need to have any painting ability whatsoever to pull this off. I've got my edible paints ready in black and avocado and a paper towel to dab off the excess. As I mentioned before, you do not need to be an artist. This is an imperfect and rustic look. I like to start out by marking out a line to determine the width of the tree trunk. No forest is completely straight in nature, and trees have wounds and other imperfections. Some of them can be leaning, and others can have branches coming off of them for visual interest. From the outside edge, pull your brush in on a bit of an upward curve. Continue this on both sides and try to stagger it a little. Ultimately, this is what gives your tree its round shape. Try not to worry about being too perfect with your strokes. My first few aren't that great either, and they're far from perfect. It'll all come together in the finished product. I can get about 4 tree trunks painted before the cake starts to soften. When this happens, I place it in the freezer for about 5 minutes just to firm up the surface for painting. I learned this technique at a paint night with my friend. We were painting a birch tree forest in the fall, and all I could think of was how I can apply this to a cake. Cake is my canvas. I've chosen not to cut much of the painting footage out for the sake of demonstrating the process, but feel free to fast forward through it if you think you've got it figured out. If you need a demonstration on smooth icing a cake, check out the link above for my tutorial. So this painting technique can be done on American, Italian, or Swiss meringue buttercream like this cake. You could also do it on fondant, and that would be even easier. The leaning and overlapping trees of various sizes are my favorite part of this design. Make sure to add some of that to your cake. My best advice would be, don't overthink this process. Now taking a smaller paintbrush, I'll add a few green accents to the tree for a more realistic look. I've decided to add a touch of prison powder to some areas of the tree trunks to add a winter wonderland feel. It's very subtle, it might be hard for you to see, but the highlights are a nice touch. Now let's add the topper. First, I'll place my wrapped spruce branches at an angle toward the back of the cake. I'll likely need some up front as well. Working from back to front, I'm adding the Christmas ornaments next, the biggest in the back. First, decide where the ornaments are going to sit, and then add a little piping gel or buttercream to hold them in place. Buttercream is always best for this purpose, but I forgot to keep any. Just a couple more finishing details and we'll be done. Put a little piping gel on your ornament toppers with a small paintbrush and set them where you think they look best. I can see that I need a little more greenery toward the front of the cake, so I'll wrap the stem of another spruce branch and place it there. I love this brown floral tape. It looks so natural with the brown branches. I'm happy with the way this cake came out. If I make it again, I may opt for another layer to add more height to the tree trunks, but then you're getting into a cake that needs structural support inside. I'd need to add a cake board between the second and third layers with the dowels for support. It's a bit more complex, so it's not for everyone, and I chose not to do it here. Thank you for joining me, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more in-depth tutorials like this one. Leave your questions and comments below, and I'll get back to you. As always, thank you for watching.